All right, looks like you don't have my picture, but I can talk, but I'll mute myself now.
Can you see us?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay.
I'm having all kinds of internet problems.
Oh, yeah, we lost that earlier today too.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, and the old computer I'm using has no microphone and no camera.
You could, if you could also use the call-in number and use your cell phone.
I'm doing that. That's how you're hearing.
Okay.
So
This
it's
is
a
as good
mess.
as it gets.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Okay.
Okay, we're still we're still admitting people in from the waiting room. Let me just make sure that everybody's admitted who's been in the waiting room. Okay.
Okay.
We'll give a few extra minutes. I understand that some people needed to download an upgraded version. So we'll just allow a few extra minutes for technology time. We'll go ahead and get started. It is 7:05. We've allowed for enough of technology time. Everybody through the waiting room. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and have call to order of the June Clintonville Area Commission meeting. And I'd like to welcome everybody in attendance this evening. And I think we may still have a couple of people waiting to come in. I'd like to do something that we've never done before to begin the meeting. I'd like to just ask everybody to just observe 30 seconds of silence And that is just to recollect ourselves from a very chaotic few months, actually. And I just want to take a moment here and reflect upon current events and allow ourselves to kind of emotionally regroup. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will go ahead and get started. Welcome to your Clintonville Area Commission, committed to the undertaking of the preservation of the values of the community through promotion, implementation, and recommendation to city officials. The Clintonville Area Commission was empowered in 1974 by the Columbus City Charter to represent the Clintonville community in the discussion of community concerns. By city code, the purpose of the CAC is to afford voluntary citizen participation in the decision-making in an advisory capacity and to facilitate communications, understanding, and cooperation between neighborhood groups, city officials, and developers. And we'll go ahead and get started with roll call and district updates. We'll start with District 1, Commissioner Votero.
Thanks, BJ. This week was certainly a very eventful week in terms of the news from around the country and downtown as well. It was though very quiet here in South Clintonville. We did have a few issues that I assisted some neighbors with some ongoing concerns with graffiti. I think we were able to get a leg up on that. We had some return to an ongoing noise concern at Indianola Alternative Elementary or K-8 school that I think we will be able to work out with Columbus City Schools on that. And then we have a topic here in South Clintonville that I think will affect most of Clintonville that we'll talk about a little bit later, which is the 5G installation that's going on in our neighborhood. And probably if it's not already going on in other parts of Clintonville, it soon will be.
BJ, you're on mute.
BJ, you're on mute.
Next, we'll go on to District 2 with Commissioner Nimitz. How does it feel to be attending your last CAC meeting?
Well, I'm leaving with a heavy heart, but I think it's the right choice that I've made. Yeah, and I'm super excited about Brian coming on. He's awesome. We met and I downloaded everything to him that I knew. And of course, I'm there for him if he needs anything. And I just have two little things to report. I helped a neighbor with an alley paving issue that she's having. Unfortunately, it wasn't resolved, but we worked together along with Catherine Call.
I'm sorry, you said alley?
Alley, yeah. A neighbor that has been asking for her alley to be paved for a number of years. And I just tried to see if, I could help out. It wasn't resolved, but we had a great, it was really nice to meet her and we had a really nice conversation about it. And then also talking about the events of the past week, I myself participated in a little bit of protesting or marching, not protesting, but marching at the North Broadway High Street. And I just felt like it was a way for me as, just to express my feelings of deep sorrow about everything. And lastly, I just wanted to read a little goodbye note to everybody. I just wanted to say that it has been a pleasure to work with such a great group of people. And I've learned so much from all of you. And I also want to recognize Libby Weatherholt, who was chair when I came on, and BJ White, our current chair. And I really admire them for all the energy and time they put into leading our band of 9. And another person I greatly appreciate is Catherine Call. Her dedication to problem solving has enabled me to be a successful commissioner. And thanks to my neighbors of District 2 for giving me the opportunity to represent them. So thank you very much, everyone, and I will miss you all. But I'm sure I will see you at a CAC meeting. So it will not be goodbye forever.
And I too want to say back at you, we appreciate your demonstration and commitment to not only what you do as the minimum standard and fulfillment of your area commissioner duties, but all the extras that you did, being recording secretary, making sure that forms are filled out diligently, making sure that the chili cook-off goes. And not just what you do, but how you do it.
Well, thank you very much, BJ. It's been a real pleasure working with you all. Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to Commissioner Weatherholt, District 3.
Here
Let's
we go.
unmute.
I am juggling 3 computers tonight. One computer gives me all the stuff that I need, but it has no camera or microphone. I'm on my smartphone to talk, and my other computer that I can't get internet on right now has a lot of my documents. So if you can't see me, but I hope you can hear me, that's fine. Thank you, Tara, for such nice remarks, and we will miss you. I know how hard the secretary job is, and it does take time, and you really came to the fore and have done a great job. It's been pretty quiet here in District 3. I'm working with one situation that's dealing with a sewer that's over 100 years old. So if you think nothing we do right now has anything for the future, just wait. 100 years from now, people could be cursing at you. But so, and also, David, in District 1, my 2 favorite residents there, my daughter and her best friend in 2 different houses, have all had flooding problems. My daughter's best friend today on Kensington Place. I guess the street was flooded after this rain, like at 5:30, and her basement had a little rain. So of course you wouldn't have heard about that, but they're my 2 best little young folks that I love, and even my daughter, who had the dry basement treatment, and it's not totally done, but it's the inside part is supposed to be totally done. They still had a little water today, so it's tough with all of those things on top of all of the current events that we're dealing with. So everybody, if anyone else has any flooding problems in District 3, please let me know. Make sure that you report it to the city and to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Weatherholt. We appreciate you. We'll move on to Commissioner Minister for District 4.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Judy. You sound
Okay. Judy Minister, District 4. I too had a phone call with Leslie this afternoon. We had some flash flooding in the streets in District 4 and part of 5 from Fallis Road down to Oakland Park. Even with that short rainfall, the water was just spraying out of the storm sewers. I don't have wet basement reports, but the streets were really over the top, just a whole torrent of water running from Indianola to High and not making it into the storm sewers. So Leslie has photos of that as well. But that's about it for District 4. Thanks.
Thank you. We appreciate your commitment. I know that you've been very responsive to your constituents and to the neighborhood with regard to issues related to Blueprint Columbus and the, you used a term torrent water. You know, I just really appreciate your commitment and keeping me in the loop and redirecting those concerns to the city. Well, we appreciate you very much because I think you benefit all of Clintonville when you push
Oh,
those
thanks,
upward.
BJ. And on a positive note, this is, you know, I have the Whetstone Prairie in my district, but Kendra has the Park of Roses where I sometimes volunteer. They have finally allowed the volunteers to get back out at the Park of Roses. As long as we bring our own equipment and wear masks, we are allowed out in the field again. So that's good news. Thanks.
Very good news. Thank you again. We'll go ahead and Brittany, I don't mean to leapfrog over you, but I want to save the best for last. So Brittany, hang in there with me. We'll circle back to you, okay? We'll move to Commissioner Carpenter with District 6.
It's been actually pretty quiet. I need to let all of you know if you try to contact me through Facebook, I've taken a pause just to give myself some time to generate some more positivity in my life, quite frankly. And so I had to get away from it. So anybody who needs to contact me, please email me. Some of you have my business email that gets to me a little quicker, or feel free to text or call at any time. My cell phone number is listed on the website, I believe. It's been pretty quiet here, except for the motorcycles running up and down 315 that I have a neighbor that's complaining about. But there's really not much that we can do right now because our police force is otherwise focused on the other things that are going on in our neighborhoods right now. But I know that I've been in contact a little bit with Catherine about it, but unfortunately, I don't think there's much that we can do about it right now. I think it's going to calm down a little bit now that the businesses are starting to open and people are starting to return to work. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Carpenter. We really appreciate you and your responsiveness to your constituency. And we greatly appreciate your work. And we'll make sure to work with Ty and our Tech and PR committee that if anybody needs to contact you, to please contact you directly, that you are taking a pause and reprieve from Facebook. I highly encourage that. It's very beneficial. We will move on to Commissioner Wyman for District 7.
Mike Wyman, District 7. I spoke to the reporter for the Columbus Dispatch about flooding. Commissioner Garrison did as well. So we got some attention drawn to that through that article. So that was good. The Director of Government Affairs for the Columbus City Schools got back to me about the Minion Middle School and how next school year it's going to be empty, but it's going to be under renovation. And they're looking at moving those two Spanish and French immersion, and I don't know, that one class of Mandarin that they do into that building in the 2000, what would that be, 21-22 school year. So it won't be sitting empty for that long, but at least we will have to keep an eye on it. So anytime those things are under construction like that, it's going to attract some folks who want to, take off some copper and wire and things like that. So we will have to keep an eye out for that. But other than that, got an issue coming up in the zoning and variance, and that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Wyman. We appreciate you. Glad you're with us tonight. We'll go on to Commissioner Jim Garrison with District 8.
Hi, Commissioner Garrison, District 8. And it's just kind of an extension of last month. As Commissioner Wyman had mentioned, the reporter from the Dispatch had reached out and was looking at doing an article about flooding, which I think just came out a few days ago. So the topic, as we've discussed, things that Libby has mentioned as well, on flooding in basements and the storm runoff getting into the sanitary system, backing up into people's basements. It's unfortunate that it's coincidental that there's rain gardens as well going on, and that's an issue. The discussions with the city, your Blueprint and Leslie Westerfelt has said that it's not related, and a lot of the residents don't agree with that. They feel as though it's a problem, but we are trying to refer everyone to Project Dry Basement, and the city has resources there where you can report flooding coming into your basement through the sanitary system and try to get eligibility qualification for a backwater valve installed on your main sewer line, which should prevent that, as well as installations of sump pumps. So, and even still, just, you know, she mentioned this just happened a few hours ago, and things are happening again. So my hope is that the city can increase some of the bandwidth that they have to address this issue and realize that now that we're experiencing record rainfalls, that maybe this isn't, maybe this is the new normal, and that more attention has to be given to it. Separate to that, there was an issue that came up with a resident in the district that kind of reminded me and reminded a lot of the neighborhood that we need to keep an eye out for our neighbors, especially if they ask for help or if they appear as though, you know, something doesn't seem right. So, you know, I won't get into details on the specific issue, but it was nice to see that someone had reached out to a neighbor, and that neighbor posted on Facebook that this person needed some assistance. And probably within 2 hours or so, there were 35 to 40 residents kind of lining up to help out, which is very satisfying to know that there are people out there that care. So it's also a reminder, though, that we need to keep an eye out for our neighbors and know that not everyone's on Facebook, not everyone has access to email, and you know, sometimes they can be disconnected. And if people have been sitting at their house for 3 or 4 months and have limited communication with the outside, that you know, we owe it as humans to look out for one another. And that's all I have.
Commissioner Garrison, I want to commend you for being so responsive, and I mean, most, you know, I don't know if a lot of people would have extended the time, effort, and care that you did to personally facilitate that. And I have been privy to some of the details, and we'll keep those under our hat, just out of dignity for the person, for our neighbor. But you are a very kindred soul, Jim Garrison. You deserve a round of applause for that. So thank you.
And I don't want to belittle your involvement and, you know, your help with resources, as well as Kara had mentioned, you know, the hero of the day once again, Catherine Call, who makes sure that everyone is connected with everyone else, and everyone involved appreciates all of the involvement there.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. You're always on standby, and you never disappoint. I guess we'll go ahead. Does that conclude your district report?
That does. And one of the things that I just realized that I didn't mention that I thought about talking about was, even though the community and the city and the state have, and the nation have social programs or assistance programs, it doesn't necessarily mean that the connections are made or made effectively or efficiently with the people who need those things. So even though someone might qualify for something, just because that happens doesn't necessarily mean that automatically things fall into place. So, you know, it's helpful to have those dialogues with people. And when you know about things, and you know, obviously sometimes people can be sensitive about issues, personal issues and other things, and that happens, but we're all one nation, so we need to keep a lookout for everyone.
It's very true, Jim. Thank you again. We greatly appreciate you. And sometimes our role is, and you know, I read that mission statement at the beginning of every meeting, just as a reminder to those who are joining the meeting, but just as a reminder to ourselves, and to speak it out loud, and for, you know, to have a 3-minute recitation on why we exist. You know, it's not always about development. It's about bridging that communication. And, you know, my life experience is that people who need the help the most don't often know where to go. And sometimes we have to be that switchboard operator. And that's why I'm just so grateful to have people on this commission who genuinely care and genuinely follow through. And then we have Catherine Call, who kind of is the navigator to most of those solutions. So I'm just really glad that we are willing to reach outside and kind of step up our role a little bit to help those neighbors. We'll go to my district, District 9. I will share with you that I'm just so thankful to the city right now. I just want to show some appreciation and gratitude. We know that a lot of the resources that the city typically extends to neighborhoods are being absorbed now by issues as they relate to the occurring social movement and the COVID-19. And it's so to say thank you for still maintaining our neighborhood park. Sharon Meadows Park gets mowed. It's a 10-acre park. They mowed it. It looks fabulous. The trash still gets picked up from the trash cans. We've undergone a major resurfacing and curb reconstruction along High Street. They finally painted the lanes today. If most of you have visited Graceland Shopping Center in the past week, I'm sure you can appreciate that. We just really feel cared about and cared for. And I know that, you know, new asphalt and a lawnmower, it just really goes a long way in how our neighborhood is perceived. And I just want to say thank you to those powers that be that keep continuity of care to our neighborhoods and care to our streets and construction taken care of. So I actually have, I'll say that we've got some aging infrastructure right next door to me, a deteriorating sewer main bell. So I'll probably ditto a lot of what Commissioner Weatherholt says, but dealing with an issue with a neighbor right now, and I'll be partnering up with them to try to find a resolution through the city. Our Flags on High group that we did a resolution to recognize, comprised of neighborhood volunteers who put the flags out on the utility poles. They put their flags up in time for Memorial Day, so you can as you drive up north of Morse Road and you see those flags, you can have a sense of pride that you contributed to showing acknowledgement and appreciation to the Flags on High folks. So they're up and they'll stay up through, I believe, Veterans Day. That's all I have for my district. So we'll go ahead and conclude roll call and district reports, and we'll go on to the next item in the agenda. We're running a little bit late, so I'll just speak briefly to trending updates. Wanted to go ahead and welcome aboard Brian Pfeiffer, who is succeeding Commissioner Nimitz as Area Commissioner for District 2. Brian, I see that you're in attendance. Would you like to say a few words?
Yep, just excited to work with everybody and just looking forward to the opportunities that this role will present to me. So very happy to be aboard, and Kara has done a good job of helping get me acclimated quickly. And so figure I might reach out to Catherine and yourself, BJ, for some further updates, but we'll try and wait my time, make sure it's a good time to reach out.
Absolutely, we're here, and we'll make some time and have some good positive discussion. And you've got some big shoes to fill, but we're looking forward to having you on board.
Thanks.
And I'll go ahead and introduce Brittany Bolton, who will succeed Dana Bagwell for District 5.
Hi, thank you so much, Chair White. And I'm likewise just very excited to join the commission. Really appreciate District 5 supporting me in the election. And I've reached out to Dana to download a little bit more about her experience representing District 5. We actually were going to meet right when the pandemic started up, and we decided we'll just hold off till things get a little bit quieter. So, looking forward to learning more from each of you.
Well, thank you so much for stepping up. We really appreciate you and looking forward to your contributions, your participation, and you getting started. And I might just go ahead and say on that note that we've already received a letter of appointment from Mayor Gunther. I want to thank Catherine Call for helping to expedite that quickly and making that a smooth process. It's already been through council, so I'm sorry to say, Brian and Brittany, there's no backing out now. You're officially appointed per the mayor.
Great news. Thank you, Catherine.
Very good, thanks.
Okay, just a couple of other, the CAC resolution for the Dr. Acton has been forwarded to, was forwarded to Sandra Lopez and Catherine Call last week for special handling and delivery to City Council. I have not yet received an update on that. Perhaps when I hand the microphone over to Catherine, she might be able to offer an update on that. Also want to thank Catherine for hosting or for inviting me to the meeting for Vision Zero. I think that Commissioner Weatherholt was also in attendance on that meeting where we discussed safe motorist behavior. How do we influence change? How do we initiate a cultural shift in where motorists and pedestrians and cyclists all share the friendly roadways? I learned a lot, and there's lots of facts and stats and data involved in that conversation. And I'm really looking forward to following up with them and seeing what we can do in Clintonville. One of the ahas that I had from attending the Vision Zero meeting is that, you know, we talk about cut through streets and we talk about speeding behaviors. And when you think about it, it's really difficult in Clintonville to retro design a multi-use path and friendly walkways and friendly cyclist bicycle routes, because we used to have a state route divide our neighborhood. 23 High Street was 23 down to Morse Road and then into Indianola. So, I mean, we used to be a highway thoroughfare. And how do we accommodate now 35,000 residents who want safe cycling and safe walking? How do we do that now? And that's the challenge that we have. And that's the big aha that I had was, you know, as a commission where we work with development and we be that conduit of information between the neighborhoods and the city, and we talk about what those aspirations and demands are, you know, it's fine to voice those concerns, but really that is a challenge. How do we make that happen? And, you know, we had a lot of backlash from the Indianola Road Diet, but, you know, primarily that is a design that is retroactively put into place to help tame the motorist behavior that was a highway at one time. And I don't think that people quite get that concept. People think that was put into place to cater to cyclists when in fact it was really just to make it more of a neighborhood street versus a highway thoroughfare. So that was my big aha moment. And I'm looking forward to getting more information about that in the future. Let's see, I'll go ahead and hand this over to Commissioner Nimitz for consideration of minutes. Kara, you're on mute. Kara, you're on mute. Kara.
Sorry about that. Do we have a motion vote to approve the May meeting minutes?
So moved.
Can somebody second?
Mute, second, I'm sorry. Mute.
I'll second it.
Thank you, David. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And do we have a motion vote to approve the May voting record? I should have included that with it.
Yeah.
I move.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Are we all in favor of, if all in favor of approving May's voting record and minutes, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, then they are accepted, official. We'll go ahead and get those officially posted on the website and share on our social media outlets. Anything else, Commissioner Nimitz?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. How'd that feel for the last time?
I always stumble over that verbiage, but yeah, it's over the minutes for me. So somebody else can carry the torch.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. Okay, we'll go
Not
ahead and
what you do
pass
it.
the mic on to Catherine. Catherine Call, our neighborhood community liaison. I'm sure you've got lots to report on, Catherine, so please take it over.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me? I first want to thank Cara for the work you've done and just thank all of you. You know, as times have been really challenging lately, you guys continue to step up to the plate, continue to meet the community where they're at and continue to do the work. So I just want to thank all of you guys for that. I was talking with the mayor's office today to kind of address everything that's been going on downtown. I first want to say myself and everyone from the city right now is heartbroken as to what happened last week with Mr. Floyd. Mayor Gunther is listening to the community. He is receiving input right now and really trying to gather all this information in having meetings with the community. I don't know what that looks like right now, but as I have more information about these community conversations to address concerns with the police, I will certainly be reaching out to you guys. Starting tomorrow, let me pull up this email. I'm gonna try and share my screen. Give me a moment. How do I share my screen?
You should be enabled. If you go down to the bottom to like where the taskbar is for the Zoom meeting, you should be able to.
Okay, perfect. I can't share. It says I'm disabled.
Try it again. There you go.
So tomorrow, Mayor Gunther and Chief Quinlan are providing a Columbus Community Safety Advisory Commission update. This is taking place, oh, sorry. Let me make this a full screen. It's happening tomorrow at 10 a.m. and I will share this information with you all so you can share this with your community members. So you can join this WebEx meeting. So I'll be sharing that with you guys as well. I was anticipating a town hall meeting for a discussion around COVID and mental health resources. I'm currently putting that on pause and I'm working with my department to have a greater discussion on mental health and racism. When I have more information about that, I will be sharing that with you guys, and hopefully at a later time, we can discuss COVID and mental health resources, because I know that being alone and being isolated right now can be a real challenge for a lot of our community members. I still have not received information about when I'm going to be returning to my office. So I'm also working with my code officers, my police liaison, my city attorney, my counterpart with City Hall, Sandra Lopez, to possibly do some virtual Pride Team meetings so the community can engage with us. And I'm also working in partnership with the Columbus Library to host virtual library hours. Now, there's also talks that as the libraries open up, I could potentially start having a table outside this summer. We can safely socially distance, but I can still engage. But I'm still waiting to see from the library if they want me actually sitting outside or they would prefer some sort of online platform for me to engage with the public. When I have those details squared away, I will also share that with you guys. As far as the Dr. Achtenstein, David, thank you for following up with me this week. I have reached back out to public service to find out more information and I have not heard back yet. So I will send a gentle nudge again tomorrow to see where we're at with that.
I had promised to make a few follow-up phone calls as well. So I'll try to coordinate with you so we're consistent in whatever messaging we hear back and forth.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Catherine?
Yes, ma'am.
This was the first I was hearing about the Safety Advisory Committee meeting. I've been noticing lately that memos about meetings are coming in very late again. They really improved for a while, and now there's very little forward notice about a lot of meetings. And I know it's been difficult, so I know all of that, but just wanted to put in my 2 cents worth that if I send out this memo now, a lot of people won't get it until morning.
Oh, I agree. And I'll take responsibility. I received this earlier today and I just have not been able to share it. And I think things are just continuously changing hour by hour.
Well, I wouldn't fault you because even a day ahead of time is not enough time.
Right, right. And then Sandra, did you want to share anything from City Council? Because I know City Council has talked a lot about what has happened since last week, and I didn't know if you wanted to speak on any of that as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Hi. So first, I wanted to let BJ know that I passed the resolution information to Councilmember Doran's office, but between COVID, flooding, and protest, they're probably getting to it. Council members are only meeting or have only been meeting every other Monday. So also that makes the makes agenda a little bit packed, but I'll follow up. I'll be sure to follow up with them in the morning and get back to you on that. As far as council, I'm sure you saw the letter that Council President issued over the weekend regarding the protest and everything that has been going on in the country. And we have, this week actually marks my 4th year with the City of Columbus, and of all the issues, this has been the one that has generated the most amount of attention for us. We've received more letters and more emails and more calls than anything else that has happened, at least during the time that I've been here. So we are taking that very seriously, but at the same time, we are going to move relatively fast. So to Libby's point, I had not even seen that memo that Catherine shared today because I had computer problems in between working from home and trying to connect to this. I actually went to City Hall today for a little bit because sometimes the emails that get on the on the junk mail. I'm not able to open them unless I'm on the network. And so we have a lot in front of us, but our goal is to implement some reforms to create a better relationship with police officers and our community members, and make the city safe for everyone. But we also believe that protesters had the right to be in the city and have their voices heard. I'm sure you saw that council president got sprayed himself. So that was, I think, a low moment for all of us. I was there on Saturday myself. And I think it's time to change for Columbus. And I think that we can also lead with something new. I think it's time. We have the Matrix report. We did a lot of focus groups with different communities last year. So all we need to do now, it's moving to action. Any questions or thoughts, concerns?
Thank you, Sandra, for all of your good work. We
Thank
appreciate
you, guys.
it. All right, back to you, Catherine. Does that conclude your update?
Yes, that concludes my update. Thank you. And thank you, Sandra.
Thank you again, Sandra. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Sandra.
Okay, and it is 7:47. We're about 2 minutes behind on our agenda. We'll go ahead and give it over to Chair Hardwick.
Thank you.
AJ, I'm sorry, do you want a treasurer's report?
Sorry, Commissioner Carpenter, I apologize.
That's okay.
I apologize. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to be remiss.
That's okay. We just have something to talk about, that's all.
Okay,
I'll make it very quick. Our current account right now is at $597.75. I can still pay bills through my cutoff was actually Monday, this past Monday, June 1st, just so I can have some time to do some accounting. I only received two, and I know BJ, you have some for me, but I received 2 expense reimbursement sheets. Those have been paid out and they're on their way. As they say, the check is in the mail. But if there are any other expenses that need to be reimbursed, I need to have those by tomorrow at the very latest, because I have to get my accounting reports in by the end of the month. But it is time to set a new budget, and I'm going to try to share my screen here. And so I put together a proposed budget. I hope that this is working. Okay, can everyone hear me still? Okay, my headset is telling me to recharge it. So I put together a proposed budget. We have an extra $1,000. We usually have historically had $2,500. They've given us a raise this year to $3,500. And the only historical data that I was left with was the last fiscal budget from 2019, 2020. We go from May 1st of the year to the end of the, kind of goes over almost like a school year. But you can see on the screen what I propose. This is based on the historical data. I've looked more into exactly how these expenses are classified. They're a little confusing, and I'm going to be making a new expense reimbursement sheet based on my understanding of what the budget is. And if you scroll down, and I can send these to you, but it kind of gives the explanation of each category on what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. The biggest bulk, I think, of our expenses, other than like in election years, happen to be with the business cards, which I think BJ and I have talked about finding maybe a new vendor that could save us a little bit more money. And the stationery is also very costly if we continue to get it from a professional printer. These are things I think that can be looked into a little bit further. But our other expenses are things like postage, and I mean, that's really about it. Going back to the budget, I kept in the $200 in travel. We didn't use that last year. I know that there are some conferences that we're able to go to pay at least the registration fees. I'm not sure. It's so uncertain now with what's going on in the country and the world, if we're even going to be able to travel or if it's going to be safe to travel, but I kept that in there. Consumable supplies, I think that will be sufficient. And I put the most money in the miscellaneous expenses because that's where the advertising comes from if there's election years and if there's consumable or miscellaneous expenses such as letterhead and business cards and things like that, that all comes out of miscellaneous expenses as the city has defined it. So if I have a motion, and I think that I can do this, BJ, if not, please correct me, but if I can move to approve this budget, I can then send it on with my final reporting that's due at the end of this month.
Okay, first I want to go ahead and solicit any feedback or questions from our commissioners. I have reviewed this and from a preliminary scope and trust Commissioner Carpenter's research and being able to allocate sums related to past expenditures. I'm comfortable with this, but I want to go ahead and open it up to anyone else who might have any other additional feedback or questions about this budget.
It's Libby.
Go ahead, Libby.
I'm just, how much is our post office box rental?
I put that in there as 130 because it's about 122, and that comes out of the rental that is defined.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was 122, and I know sometimes it goes up a little bit, and so that's why I put in the 130.
Well, and and did that include the second post office box that they did for the election?
It did not.
Okay.
That box cost $33 because we didn't do the entire year and was able to get back part of that money. But I did not include that in here. I figured if we, is it typical that we do a separate post office box for the election?
We have not, but they thought that after a year ago and some of the difficulties that they would do a second one. So it was totally separate. So I believe this was the first time we have done that. But my other question has to do with, and I know we can move money around, so it's not a big deal. But, and also, maybe we won't ever meet in a room again. Who knows? But, I mean, are we paying for this Zoom thing, BJ? And also, if we do have to have a large meeting, that could cost money. So, and as I said, I know money can be moved around, so it's not a big deal, but that's something to think about.
We haven't had historically, the last, like I said, I only have 1 year to go on, but the last budget, we didn't have anything allocated to costs and rental fees. So I just put that in there as I read through the description.
Absolutely. I think the last time that we had to pay for a rental is when we had to move a meeting quickly, like within a week, and we moved it over to Clintonville Women's Club, and we ended up having like 200 people there. But yeah, it has not happened a lot in the last couple years.
Okay.
This is Brian Pfeiffer. I just had a question. Can you scroll down a little bit further on the unallowable expenses? This was just something I'm wondering, and it was what I was hoping to reach out to you, BJ and Catherine, about. And that's the utilization of like specific technologies such as Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, or Planner, or Forms, or Slack, or just what opportunities there to maybe streamline some of this stuff. And maybe that goes into the technology committee. I just wanted to see if that was an unallowable expense, or if some of those expenses could be approved, or if the city has licenses they could grant, if those licenses could be granted to certain commissioners or all the commissioners on Clintonville Area Commission to help make some of these processes more streamlined.
We're not permitted to have any kind of like technology as far as we can't buy computers or printers or things like that. I've had a very short discussion with Julia, who is my supervisor down, treasury supervisor down at the city. And if we have to have anything, especially, I mean, this is kind of an unheard of like environment that we're walking through right now. We're all kind of walking blindly, but I don't think that's going to be a problem with getting things like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where we're typically using, we're in Zoom right now. Is that right, BJ?
Correct.
And I know we have to have a subscription to Zoom in order, because I have it for my business, that you only, otherwise you're limited to 40 minutes, I believe. So we had to buy the entire thing. But I mean, to me, it's negligible. It's something that we can certainly work through. And you'll find that some of us don't always put in reimbursement for things that we offer, that we already have available to us as well.
Thanks.
So, and just to further, for those who might be anticipating a subsequent question to that is, you know, I tried to find the easiest technology that was streamable and that was able to meet the must-haves on the city attorney's checklist for public meetings. Zoom, you can sync that to a Google Calendar. I have synced the Zoom meeting setup with the Clintonville Area Commission website calendar. So it talks to one another so that if there are any updates, they get posted to the calendar. And I can post the agenda that way too. And then I can also live stream on our YouTube channel that we created specifically for this purpose, Channel Clintonville, which is the Clintonville Area Commission YouTube channel. So all of those things work in conjunction with one another and really were the easiest to do. So the subscription fee for Zoom is less than $20 a month. It's a subscription fee. It's a meeting related fee. I don't know how we categorize that. Is a subscription, is a technology subscription considered the same as rental? If we were renting?
It actually would fall under miscellaneous expenses, the way that I read it. And it's something that we can certainly, if we're going to use this, and I think it's great that we're using it. I think it actually encourages with the YouTube channel. I think it's really encouraging more participation for people who can't attend in person. But I think it would fall under miscellaneous expenses, and it's something that we can certainly discuss with Julia going forward.
Catherine put in a memo in the chat area that said city would pay for that.
Okay. All right. So then we'll stop. We'll just go ahead and pause that conversation and take Catherine at her word. So. All right. Any more questions or feedback for Commissioner Carpenter with regard to her proposed budget?
I want to thank Kendra for putting the budget together. I think it's well done. As Libby, money can kind of move around, and that's usually not a problem as the year develops. And Brian brings up a good point about, you know, maybe we need things like Slack and some other things that might be great opportunities for us here. So those I think are naturally going to fit in that miscellaneous category. So I would. You know, forward thinking in terms of how we could adapt to some of that. And Kendra, can you distribute the budget, the proposed budget, just so we kind of have a copy?
Absolutely.
That and sharing that with us.
Hey, Kendra, I'll go ahead and I'll sign off on it with the commission's approval.
Okay.
And we'll distribute the finalized budget.
I'll send you a final copy that doesn't say proposed.
Okay. Also, would you mind, I know that you said that you were going to revise and produce an expense reimbursement sheet.
Yes.
Can you please send me one of those too?
Absolutely, when I get it done.
I know. We appreciate the time and effort. This has been very time consuming for you, and I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay. Does that conclude the treasurer's report?
It does. I just need, I need to approve.
All right. All in favor of approving our treasurer's proposed budget, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, then we will go ahead and approve the budget. Thank you so much again for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
All right. Chair Hardwick with our Zoning and Variance Committee. Stephen, you're on.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. This is the problem I have with being a lawyer. I keep calling people Your Honor no matter where I appear before.
I don't mind that. I've never been called.
Okay. Well, when you've called a board when I called the commission this court, you'll know that I've gone way too far. We have two items on the agenda. The first was 280 Oakland Park, BZA 20038. And this was a garage variance. The homeowner, Stephen Gunther, who is here, wants to build a 2-car garage in generally the same location as his current garage. I'll let him explain. He basically wants to add on to his current garage. Seeks variance to increase the permissible height from 15 feet to 18 feet 2 inches and decrease the side yard setback from 3 feet to 2 feet 10 inches, and that's the current setback. I think, and just as a side note, I don't know if the commission has ever turned down a height variance on a garage of this small size. But the applicants, so the original garage was built in the 60s. They can only get 1 car into it. He wants to add into the front, adding additional 13 feet and a few inches. The first floor will be concrete block with fiber on top. It will have loft style space on top, but not habitable space. And he's doing it. He wants the height variance to mirror the roof pitch, which is Dutch colonial. The minutes say that he plans only a 4x3 entrance to the second floor, no HVAC, but after the meeting, he contacted me to remind me that the plans do show stairs going up. Not enough, it's still not going to be habitable, but there are stairs. He didn't want that to go through, making it seem like there was only one small entrance, even though that wouldn't have made a difference. The commissioner report, Judy Minister appeared and said that she is a neighbor and she supports it and that it was thoughtful to keep the architecture like the house. We didn't find this to be at all controversial. No complaints from the neighbors. It was the same setback and a garage height that actually makes the house look better. If this one more thing I wish the city would do is increase the garage height, because city code requires ugly garages, and this homeowner is wants to build a better garage. We voted 9-0 to recommend approval.
Okay, is the, let's see, is the applicant here?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Wave your hand. Oh, there you are. There you are. Do you have anything that you would like to say on your behalf?
You know, in all honesty, I did prepare a short presentation, and it all seems trivial right now with everything that's going on. I'm embarrassed to even be here. You know, before the zoning and variance board last week, I just want to say thank you for hearing me out. Stephen, thank you for representing everything that was said. I'm just here if people have questions at this point, just to, yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gunther. We really appreciate you, and I appreciate the sentiment in which you said that. And we'll go ahead and conclude that by asking any commissioners if they have anything that they would like to ask you about your garage.
I had one thing I wanted to say, just kind of on a personal level, because I had thought about adding onto a garage at one point, and rather than making it larger width-wise, making it deeper. So I commend you for that. I think it's a kind of a great idea. But one of the things that I did want to mention, which comes up a few times, is relative to side yard setbacks and what kind of is documented or requested relative to variances. And again, it's nothing as opposition to the application. Just a note that as far as side yards and their calculations, it's for the building up to the unobstructed sky, I think it is, and 3332.28. So inclusive of overhangs, gutters, and other things like that. So I just, in certain circumstances, if someone were to request a variance, obviously yours is existing to remain in terms of the side yard. But in other instances, if someone is requesting a variance and they request the wrong dimension because they don't accommodate for the overhang, then that could be an issue. So
Okay.
that's the only thing I wanted to say. Nothing really in opposition or anything like that. Just wanted to put that out there.
Good enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Garrison. We always appreciate your forethought. Are there any other questions, concerns, comments, feedback from the commission? Okay, then I guess we are ready to propose our vote. We will go ahead and call roll. I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to vote for the applicant's request?
I move to approve.
All right, I think I heard two there. We'll go ahead and call roll and issue vote. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yes.
District 7,
Yes.
District 8,
Yes.
and District 9 shall also vote yes. And I want to make clear that Brittany is picking up midterm from Dana Bagwell's position and succeeding her role, and that's why she is exercising a vote on behalf of District 5 this evening. Thank you for that. So congratulations, Mr. Gunther, and congratulations again, and good luck with your project.
Thank you all very much and for all the work you do. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We will have the standard recommendation forms to the BZA no later than noon on Monday.
Thank you again.
Okay, and we are ready to move on to our next variance request applicant. Stephen?
Okay, this is at 99 East Cook Avenue, which is Bishop Watterson. The diocese seeks variances to reduce the required parking setback along Indian Springs from the right-of-way from 25 feet to 11 feet, and from the requirement that the parking lot, and they would normally be required to illuminate the parking lot, and they want to be excused from the requirement to illuminate the parking lot. This would actually move the paved area farther away from the street than it is right now, and would leave all on-street parking the way it was. Just as a general note, we had a very wide-ranging discussion at the meeting. There are clearly a lot of issues between Bishop Watterson and the neighbors. If this were a vote on whether the stadium goes in, it would have been, it probably would have been, there's a very good chance it would have been a very different discussion, at least from the committee's perspective. But the stadium is there. Whether we want it to be compliant with zoning codes or not, it is a permitted use. And just as my report for the committee, there were a lot of, that stadium is causing a lot of grief for the neighbors in terms of additional participation. I know there's always been athletics there, but there's a difference between having an athletic field and a really, really nice competition level night lit up stadium. And a lot of the neighbors' concerns were about that and about communications issues regarding that. And all committee members who voted for this, which it was a unanimous decision, 8-0, a number of them said that they commented that they very much wanted better communication from Bishop Watterson to the neighbors. There was there was no support from the neighbors, but there was, the closest thing to support is someone saying they didn't see need for even more lights there. And I think part of the reason why we voted for the light variance is that the neighbors are complaining about how much too much light, and we figured there's no reason to require them to add even more light to it. I'll let the applicants speak for themselves. Commissioner Weinman may want to give his own report here because of difficulties with his connection. He wasn't able to speak. We did try to relay questions, but he wasn't able to speak during the zoning and variance committee. So I leave it to Chair White to decide whether she wants to recognize the applicant or Commissioner Weinman next. The committee voted to recommend approval by a vote of 8-0 on both variances. And that's the conclusion of my report, unless I'm recognized again.
All right. Thank you, Chair Hardwick. We appreciate that. Commissioner Wyman, I think that we are going to carry this dialogue forward with the neighborhood concerns. I will say that Deacon Chris Campbell has reached out to me directly, and we will make a concerted effort between you and I to work with Deacon Campbell, Tom Long, Catherine Cunningham, Dick McBride, whomever we need to in addressing whichever concern, whoever box that particular concern fits in. We will carry that dialogue forward. I have their commitment to for improved communication and to bring that dialogue around 360 degrees. So Commissioner Wyman, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you if you have anything further to say about this variance request.
I would just like to say that I was encouraged by Bishop Watterson and their commitment to discuss the ongoing issues with the neighborhood. I was encouraged by the neighbors who were reaching out. That was really good. We had a really good back and forth. And as far as the variance is concerned, I think it's a good thing. When you look at how they're going to adjust traffic flow and greenery, and we don't really want a lot of light pollution in that area. So I'm in favor of the variance.
Thank you, Commissioner Wyman. We appreciate that. And I know that you're going to carry this forward with some very productive dialogue and go to bat for your constituents and help bridge that communication. So we appreciate you very much. We'll go ahead and defer this portion to the applicant. Catherine, would you like to start?
Thank you, Chair White, and thank you for the conversation. Chair White and I have been communicating since the filing of the application, and we appreciate the open dialogue. As Mr. Hardwick mentioned, the request is for 2 variances. Bishop Watterson has existing tennis courts on the southwest corner of their site, kind of between some of the athletic fields and Indian Springs. They had striped it and had been using it for a parking lot, and were notified that they needed to go through the city process for a formal parking lot approval. And that's what brought them to, we've been through preliminary site review with the city, and there was a new parking lot designed for that area in more compliance with the code. And I think, as Mr. Hardwick mentioned, the result of that is they're going to lose some parking spaces, but gain some green space and kind of improve on some of the buffering between the neighbors, particularly to the south and a little bit to the west. We did hear a lot of conversation at the meeting about lack of communication or frustration of the neighbors with some of the school uses of the property and the athletic fields, which all met code, and so they just got building permits for those. So there wasn't an ongoing dialogue about that. So we did hear that. I think, as Chair White mentioned, she and Deacon Campbell have reached out to each other, and they're going to have some dialogue with the neighbors. Most of the conversation, I think, that Mr. Hardwick was mentioning didn't really directly relate to the variances. I felt that the neighbors didn't want more lighting in the area, and as Deacon Campbell mentioned, there wasn't a request for lighting because of that with the neighbor. And for the variance, getting more green space, we have several members here from Bishop Watterson, and also the design consultant, one of the consultants on the parking lot. And I think your time is better spent listening to them and not me. Let me introduce everybody, and I'm going to ask one of the consultants, Dick McBride, can talk to you a little bit about the landscaping in the parking lot and its design. It's really designed to sort of integrate in with what's really there, and the variance will line it up with the parking lot, the existing parking lot to the east. But also importantly, there are 3 members here from Bishop Watterson and the diocese, Deacon Campbell and Tom Long, Deacon Campbell is the principal at Bishop Watterson, and Tom Long is, I want to say, facilities director, also teacher at Bishop Watterson. And Tom deals a lot with the facilities issues. And of course, Deacon Campbell is in charge on site. And also tonight, who was not at the committee meeting, is Bob Sisson, who is with the diocese, and he's also stepping up on some of the neighbor relations issues to be another resource available from the diocese to talk with neighbors and deal with the area commission and whatever issues might come up. So with that, I wanted to go ahead and sort of pass it off to Dick McBride so that Dick could at least give you a summary of what's happening with the parking lot, sort of more of the statistics. He did see, if you saw in your packets, his group did provide some examples of what the parking lot trees are going to look like and what the hedgerow is going to look like, and those issues. And I think that comes better from him than me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, I'm Dick McBride, and I'm founding partner with the Edge Group Landscape Architects. And as I want to touch on about 3 points very quickly. Catherine had mentioned that we're trying to add green space. Right now, the parking lot pavement extends all the way to the right-of-way line, and we're asking to move that back onto our site by 11 feet, and that lines up with the parking lot directly to the east. So we feel there is some precedent there for where that south edge of the parking lot aligns. And in doing that, we're able to add, just over a half an acre of green space all along Indian Springs Drive. There's currently in the right-of-way a pretty heavy landscape now of trees and undergrowth, which we are not going to touch in this project. So there'll still be that screening. Plus we're adding an evergreen hedge all along the south side of that parking lot and partially on the west side to provide, because it's evergreen, we're going to provide 100% opacity, which I believe exceeds City of Columbus standards. So we think the addition of green space is great. We're adding 7 more trees to the site. So there is a net gain of landscaping and screening. Importantly, and I think the best thing to touch on is the design of the parking lot and the number of parking spaces. Currently out there, the school is providing space for 73 cars, okay? There's 73 cars that park on that space now. With granting of the variance, we will be able to park 61 cars. Now that's great, except that what that means is now there's 12 students in their cars trying to find a parking space somewhere else around the site. So rather than them come to school and drive into the parking lot, they're now circling the lot or circling the site and trying to find parking somewhere else and adding more traffic to the area. So that's 61 on site and 12 additional try to find space off site. If we are not granted the variance, the design of the parking lot would be much different, and we could only park 40 cars in the lot. Now, what that means is now we've got 33 students who are now vying for space someplace else. And that won't be on campus because we've used up all of the spaces. So now we've got 33 more vehicles circling the school and neighborhoods trying to find parking. So we feel that just asking to move that pavement back 11 feet, adding more green space and not adding cars, additional cars in the neighborhood is a very reasonable ask. With that, I can answer, I'll be able to answer later any questions you might have.
All right, so far, commissioners, do we have any questions for either Catherine or Dick?
Thank you, Chair White. If it's, oh, sorry. Mr.
No.
General. I was going to say, and if Bishop or Deacon Campbell may want to say a few words too, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, no, we'll get him in there. I just wanted to see if there was any question for you, and then you warmly transferred the baton to Dick. And I wanted to make sure if there was any questions about landscape architecture to be addressed by Dick. So does anybody have any questions for our landscape architect?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Libby, we can hear you.
I just would like to know what their plans are for decreasing the number of students who drive. Because I mean, as they say, this is it. And I know what it's like around Watterson at dismissal time. And, you know, you can keep increasing and increasing and increasing parking spaces, but somewhere along the line, there has to be a way to, you know, you just can't keep increasing the number of students who drive.
Okay, so I'm gonna, I think that is a great question, Libby, and I think that comes from a place that Libby also chairs our Clintonville Green Spot Committee. And she's also organized community bike rides throughout the neighborhood as well, and a proponent of multimodal transportation. And I think that's probably where Commissioner Weatherholt's coming from, but I want to go ahead and pause that question because I do want that question to be answered, and it's probably better going to be answered by Deacon Campbell. So I want to go ahead and pause that question and solicit any of the commissioners for questions about landscape architecture to Dick. So no one has any questions about landscape architecture. We're satisfied with the knowledge of landscape screening for lights and so on?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce Deacon Chris Campbell and let him start by making an introduction if he wishes. And then I believe that if you need, Chris, if you need that question to be recapped, we'll ask Commissioner Weatherholt to recap that to you here shortly. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Deacon Chris Campbell. I'm the principal here at Bishop Watterson, and I'm also a resident in Commissioner Minister's district. Actually live right behind her. I live on Dunedin and she lives on Oakland Park. So I'm a lifelong resident of Clintonville, and my children grew up here, and you know, we love the Clintonville community. Bishop Watterson is also I'm a graduate of Bishop Watterson back in the 1970s, but Bishop Watterson's been here for a long time, since 1954. And we feel that we are a vibrant part of the Clintonville community. And BJ mentioned, we are committed, and I'd like to include in that Commissioner Weinman and maybe even Catherine Cole, if you know that works out, to kind of begin the dialogue with the neighbors and you know, try to address some of the issues that they have. To answer the question as far as, you know, drop off and dismissal time, whether or not the students are driving or their parents are driving, you're still looking at the same number of cars, basically, in terms of at that time, you know, that from 3 o'clock till, you know, 3:30, you know, and actually it's worse when parents are coming to pick up, because then they're lining up waiting for the students and the students are coming out. And so it actually, you know, it's actually more congested when you have more parents coming to pick students up than when the students are driving themselves. So I don't know if that answers your question, Commissioner Weatherholt, at all.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
You keep saying you need more parking spaces, but you're done with this variance. I mean, there is no other room for parking spaces.
That's correct.
Am I correct? And so
That's
what
correct.
are you going to do to decrease the number of student drivers? Because I mean, I taught at Dublin High School. I know what it's like. My son went to DeSales. I know what that was like. On the line, there's no more room for cars, and you're at it. So what are you going to do to discourage students from driving?
And if I could just tail onto that, I had a similar question. You know, if I understand it correctly, your current application system for parking spaces or for the students is to prioritize carpools.
Correct.
You know, if that would carry forward in terms of this new area, if that's kind of continuing where you will give precedence to students who want to carpool.
Yes, that's the more students you have in the car, the higher the priority for getting a parking spot. And so that's kind of how our application process works for student parking. And yeah, we can't add any more spots on. And, you know, so we only have X number of spots, and that's what we tell them. And so we're encouraging them, and it's a benefit to them to carpool.
Just speaking for my constituents, a couple people that have been contacting me who live just west of the school. And the concern is lack of communication, that when they call Bishop Watterson, that their calls aren't being returned. They have students that are, I mean, it's a public street, we understand that, but they have students that are blocking driveways, that are parking in yards, or parking over in yards, and are just not doing a generally good, responsible job of administering their vehicle, whatever. But I want to encourage Bishop Watterson to be a good neighbor and to try to contact and return calls from our constituents.
Yeah, I don't know. We do return their calls, and we actually, a number of us administrators, myself included, have been down on West Cook and some of those streets when those people have called. So, and we do keep reminding them, you know, that on trash day, people need to have their trash cans out there for the city to pick them up, and you can't block those. And of course, you know, reminding them about parking and, you know, within, you know, X number of feet of a driveway and that sort of thing. But yes, we will continue to try to improve that and remind students. One of the couple times a week, we actually get on the PA as we're kind of dismissing and remind all of our students that they need to drive safely, and it's a neighborhood and elementary school kids are out and all that sort of thing. So
I appreciate that. And if there's any help I can be to be the liaison between neighbors and you or
Yeah.
students, I'm happy to do so.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions from commissioners about this?
BJ, I've got a question.
Okay.
It seems to me that I guess I was very surprised. I mean, I agree with the observation that Bishop Watterson is certainly a strong part of the community, kind of a pillar of the community, in fact. And I was very surprised that the communications with the neighbors seem to be as distant as they are. I was really very surprised that you would get this far into the process and at this point still not have met with the neighbors directly. And I understand you've made some commitments to do that, but you're here tonight asking us to vote on a recommendation. And I guess I want to ask, before we do that, would there be a hardship in us tabling the matter to give you a chance to have those conversations with the neighbors? Because it's clear that you haven't yet. And I just want to know, would that pose a hardship?
Well, I just want to reiterate, just for clarification, and I think Chair Hardwick can confirm this with his prepared synopsis and minutes, that the communication with the neighbors are not in direct correlation to the two variances being asked. Most of the neighbors' concerns have to do with other byproducts of the construction project. So I just want to, as a friendly reminder, and we are trying our best to facilitate that communication moving forward. So most of the concerns that we heard at last week's Zoning and Variance Committee meeting did not have anything directly correlated to these two variances. So
that's true, and I understand that. My question is, once we voted on a recommendation, I think the motivation to have those discussions diminishes considerably. I think the neighbors were using this as an opportunity to make sure they had a dialogue. And if it poses a hardship, I'm completely open to understanding what the hardship is, whether there's a timetable to be achieved or whether there could be reasons for that. But it seems to me like it would be advantageous to allow that conversation to happen before we make a decision. I could be alone in that, and I accept that.
I am not suggesting tabling or anything like you, David, but I do want to express my dismay at a statement that was made that the plans had been out there for years. I was a DeSales parent with a football team member, and so I knew a lot about what was going on at Watterson, and I'm beginning my 8th year on the Clintonville Area Commission, and I never once saw any plans or heard of any plans about anything that was going on until last year when complaints started coming in. So I just want to say to the Bishop Watterson and to the diocese that this just seems to be another public relations debacle that seems to be a habit with the Catholic Church. I'm sorry, I'm not Catholic, but it seems like you're coming and saying, oh, we've started this and can we do it? And you're asking forgiveness rather than having done all the things you should have done. And I guess I need to say too, that I don't agree that there shouldn't be lights in the parking lot, because I know what happens in parking lots at night. And I really think there should be some lights in the parking lot. Thank you.
I think the reason why we were asking for a variance not to have those lights in the parking lot, we just didn't want to add more light to that area in terms of the neighbors. That's the reason we asked for the variance.
I understand that, but there will be lots of nights where the only lights that might be on would be in the parking lot, and I know high school students, and I know, and the landscaping sounds lovely, but it's going to hide the entire parking lot. So there won't be any visibility from the street of what would be going on in the parking lot, which just asked again for all kinds of problems. And I am for safety of individuals more than that.
I would like to call upon Commissioner Wyman to speak on behalf of his constituency, whose neighborhood is adjacent to the construction. Can you address whether or not your constituents are for or against the lighting variance?
Thank you, Chair. From what I understood from the neighbors, they were not in favor of having more lights. You know, they've already experiencing light pollution from High Street and from other lights close, you know, on the school or close to the school. So there was no appetite for more lights in that parking lot.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wyman. I appreciate that. Chair Hardwick, can you recap some of your notes mentioned about the variance from the neighbors?
BJ, could I let the applicant give me an answer as to whether this waiting a month would pose a hardship for them?
I might ask if Catherine or Dick, maybe Catherine could answer that, or Bob Sisson, better than me, to be honest.
No, right. Sorry, Deacon, I've been trying to chime in, but I didn't want to interrupt the conversation. Well, there are a couple of things. One is it's been just with all the COVID-19, it's been very difficult to get things scheduled with the city. And I'm not sure when we're moving forward to a BZA agenda and getting anything rescheduled is difficult. So there's that. That said, we're not sure when the construction will be able to start on this project, given the amount of delays we've had. We actually started in the city of Columbus process in January and got out 2 weeks ago. And we're not done yet. So it's been a very long and difficult process just getting through Columbus. And as I'm an attorney at Kegler, Brown, Hill and Ritter, and I should have started with that. And one of the things that concerns me is also is not whether or not Bishop Watterson will have dialogue. They have committed to do so. They will do so. And their perception of the amount of communications they've had with the neighbors is not the same as the neighbors. And, you know, talking about what's happened in the past, I don't think is productive. I think what we have to do is talk about things moving forward. But so I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about that. And their perception of the amount of communications that they've had as things have been going on is not the same, certainly as the neighbors, as some of the neighbors are. So to intermix the desire for community dialogue, which really, as Chair White indicates, really the community dialogue on the variance applications, we were hard pressed to identify any that related specifically to the request for the variance in the parking lot. I think the larger communications and dialogue is just about some of the improvements that have gone on with the high school. At the high school, certainly it's clear to me that the new athletic fields have caused neighbors some heartburn, and that was something that was, you know, I know people don't want to hear this, but it was allowed under the zoning code. So they went through the Columbus permit process and did everything they were supposed to do and met all of the standards they were supposed to meet and did the improvement. Apparently clearly there's some neighbors who have not been happy with that. And I think Bishop Watterson is ready to address those issues, but none of the issues that they were talking about, that we're talking about in community conversations, really are issues about this parking lot and the variance. And we'd like to be able to move forward in the Columbus process if we can.
I think what Commissioner Votero has suggested is some way, somehow to intercede with a motivational, with some type of motivation to have that conversation. You know, I think we have this now on public commentary and permanently archived for 2 public meetings that Bishop Watterson has committed to having dialogue with the neighborhoods through the cooperation of the Clintonville Area Commission. And we're gonna take you at your word for it. But I think that in lieu of tabling this for a future consideration, until that dialogue has been had, would you consider a consolatory notion that resulting from this dialogue, you would be willing to compose in relationship with this dialogue and the neighbors what am I trying to say? A good neighbor agreement. Would you consider putting in writing, with conjunction of Commissioner Wyman, myself, Catherine Call, a good neighbor agreement that talks about any kind of disputes or anything that might come up, that anything that goes awry, that that is a variation from what we discussed this evening, that you would be willing to talk it out and talk about reparations or remedy to anything that is different from what we vote for this evening. Would you be willing to, as a consolation, to not delay this and to carry that dialogue forward, compose a good neighbor agreement with your neighbors?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Commissioner Votero, how do you feel about that as a likely scenario?
I'm very grateful for the offer. I think a good neighbor agreement would allow the neighbors maybe to discuss at length maybe some of these extraneous matters that don't deal with the variances at hand. We can handle the variances as a separate issue, but I do think that it helps Bishop Watterson to build a strong base of support among the neighbors, and also understand that, you know, you may not ever please everybody, and we can't expect you to please every neighbor. There's always going to be some considerations that there's just no way to really manage their expectations or meet them where they want to be. But I do think it helps facilitate the dialogue with the neighbors for you to be open to the idea of a good neighbor agreement and understand that you can come to a meeting of the minds with some of these issues. And the fact that you're committed to that, for me, answers 95% of my questions. So I'm very encouraged that you're committed to that. And as I think BJ mentioned, you know, we'd like to take you at your word and hope that the follow-up on that is robust. But I'm very grateful and appreciative of the fact that you're accepting that suggestion.
Yeah, just for clarity from my perspective, Chair White, can you give me an idea of what kinds of things we're talking about in a good neighbor agreement?
So a good neighbor agreement is something that probably occurs 7 out of 10 times a variance is asked of a business in the neighborhood. There are many of them that are on file. You could probably go into the citizen portal.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I know what a good neighbor agreement is. What I'm thinking about the expectations of what would be included in a good neighbor agreement.
Well, that would yet to be determined depending upon the impending dialogue that I'm able to facilitate through Deacon Campbell and the neighbors. It would be something that says, you know, we supported this variance and you agreed to work with us on this, but we are experiencing light trespass. Could maybe we, you know, revise this site plan with the landscape architect and add 3 shrubs to this property line or something to that effect.
And BJ, I don't mean to interrupt. I had some thoughts on that as well, which might, you know, illuminate kind of the example we're talking about. But, you know, to further the dialogue, I think that the neighbors want to be able to have a voice, and they want to make sure that there's open communication with the school. And then at the same time, the school wants to make sure that the neighbors are satisfied and that they're meeting their needs and their requests. So if there was something where the school perhaps has an avenue of enforcement or complaint filing and tracking, something like that, where at least the neighbors know that they can contact this person, whether that's, Mr.
Right.
Long. I don't want to put more responsibility on his shoulders, but it's something that essentially is just, if the neighbors have an issue here, we know that there could be issues, and we're open to hearing them. And this is who you can contact. And this is where what we are hoping to promise, in terms of service aspects of, you're asking us to approve the variance, and this is what we want to do in return to make sure that the neighbors are happy and everyone's, friends.
Understood. Yeah, I have been involved in similar things before, and I think it's important for Bishop Watterson desires to be a good neighbor, and it's important for them to do that. It's also important for them to be able to run a school, and they need to be able to do that too, and hopefully in a way that's very respectful to everybody around. So when we're talking about good neighbor agreements, I think that they're very open to many of the ideas. I think, Mr. Garrison, that you mentioned, I think that, if the idea is bigger than that in terms of, restricting the operations of the schools somehow, that's going to be more problematic. And I just don't want to give the impression that everything's fair game.
All right. Okay, so kind of went off in a couple different directions there. So I would ask, does anybody have any more questions for the applicant regarding either variance requests?
I apologize because I feel like time is getting late, and this is also my first meeting and I hadn't planned to speak up, but when Commissioner Weatherholt brought up the safety issues of the parking lot and lighting, I feel like we kind of jumped back a little bit, and I would just love to finish out that discussion because that was my only concern too after reviewing both the zoning meeting and then after the discussion tonight.
Okay, so I think that the safety concern with the parking lot is probably best addressed by either Tom or Chris. Feel free to redirect, but this.
Yeah, I will say this, we've been parking out there in that particular area. We've been parking there for 10 years, and we have had no issues at night in the parking lot. To be very honest, the most issues we've had in our parking lots have been during the school day, when we're in school, the kids are in school, and people have come over and during midday broken into cars and those type of things. We have not had any problems out there in the evenings. Now, granted, there usually aren't cars out there in the evenings, so that's part of it. And they know, the criminals know that it's ripe for the picking to have those cars sitting out there all day. So we don't have that many cars out there at night. And if we do, say we have a game or something going on, there are lights and there's more people around. So there's actually less chance of things happening. It's when everybody's in the school building, that's where we've had the most problems.
And Deacon, I would add on our events, probably 90% of them, we have special duty officer or officers on site as well, helping with crowds, traffic, and all of that. So there is oftentimes a police presence at our events.
Right.
All right, Commissioner Bolton, does that satisfy your question?
Yes, thank you, Deacon Campbell.
All right.
Any more questions from commissioners about these two variances? All right, do we have a motion to vote on both variances together, or shall we divide the vote?
Make a motion to do both together.
Okay, is there a second? Libby, you're muted, Libby. If
Mute, there we go. I would like to vote separately.
okay.
would
Do
like
we have a second to split the vote?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. All right, so we'll go ahead and exercise a vote for the first variance listed on the agenda. That would be to reduce the required parking setback from the right-of-way line at Indian Springs from 25 feet to 11 feet. Okay, we'll go ahead, call roll. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yes.
District 7,
Yes.
District 8,
Yes.
and District 9 shall also vote yes. The variance request for the setback from 25 foot to 11 foot is approved for recommendation. And we will go ahead and vote for the second variance. One moment while the chair locates the exact verbiage. Okay. Oh my gosh, Stephen, you gave me so many notes. I can't see the forest through the trees.
Go to the top, just go to the very top. I put
I'll go to the very top. Oh, there we go. Sorry. From the requirement that any parking lot containing 10 or more parking spaces used during non-daylight hours to be illuminated to eliminate the requirement for light fixtures in the parking lot. We'll go ahead and begin roll. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
No, and I'd also like to say to Bishop Watterson that 5 months on a variance process is not very long at all. And just because you don't need a variance doesn't mean you shouldn't talk to your neighbors. So I vote no on the lighting. Thank you.
Secretary Nimitz, do we have that recorded?
Yeah.
Okay. District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yes.
District 7,
Yes.
District 8,
Yes.
and District 9 shall vote yes. And the variance would be recommended for approval, 8-1. Okay. Let's go ahead. I just want to thank everybody who attended from Bishop Watterson for this hearing. We'll go ahead and prepare the standard recommendation form and have it to you by noon on Monday. I'll make sure that that you get it, Catherine, and retain a copy for your records.
Thank you. I'll get it distributed. And Chair White, we be setting up a meeting date. I know that you and Deacon Campbell have been talking. I assume the two of you will go ahead and set an initial meeting and we'll move from there.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for cooperation. Okay, we are past the time for adjournment. We have 6 minutes to wrap up business before the Zoom meeting is concluded. I will go ahead and steer this to the direction of Commissioner Votero for discussion of the 5G tower installation, and then we can merge that into discussion with Chair of our Planning and Development Committee, Andrew Overbeck, about the North Broadway Bridge and Olentangy Trail.
Thanks. I'll try to speed up here because I know time is short. I was contacted by a resident who lives on Kelso, who was kind of surprised by the installation of a brand new pole for 5G service. And, you know, he related the whole incident of how the contractors worked or whatever. in looking into how the city is responding to the integration of this, I would like to ask our Planning and Development Committee to look into the basic guidelines that the city can use that affect the design requirements for the installation of 5G systems. The state has some mandated regulations that limit local jurisdictions' ability to control the design or the aesthetics of 5G installations. So the first task might be them sort of unthreading what exactly we can or cannot ask for as a municipality, and then asking the city to tailor these design recommendations to Clintonville's needs. You know, can we make sure that any new poles are centered between property lines, not right in front of them? There's also a problem with the installation of these electrical boxes for service of the systems. They're so low that they sort of pose a safety hazard for anybody who's mowing their yard, kids who are on bicycles or something like that. So it's my hope that we can maybe make some common sense recommendations to try to have the city administer some design guidelines that go with the 5G installation as it rolls out throughout neighborhoods around Columbus. There's some limitations on what we can do because of some very things that the state did to limit the authority of local jurisdictions, but I think we need to understand what we're permitted to ask for and try to improve what could be a pretty nasty situation if it rolls out the way it has so far. So my hope is maybe we can kick this issue over to Andrew's group to have them look and make some recommendations back to us that we can ask the city for some ability to control what's going on, literally right in people's in the front of people's houses. The city is, in most cases, I think, can exert some influence to try to get the 5G installation to be co-mounted on existing poles. But in some cases here, we're seeing them install a whole new pole on a side of the street that doesn't have utility poles. And other parts of the city do have design guidelines. So they're getting a cast iron base and a very sleek looking pole. They don't have the ugly utility boxes on them that are kind of at head height. So I think we should try to exert some influence to try to make sure that it rolls out a little more smoothly. I think if we learned anything from the project blueprint, it's that when you're working essentially in somebody's front yard, you need to be a little more fine-grained in terms of making sure that people understand what's coming.
Having the audio. Can anybody hear me? Do we have audio?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
We lost David.
Inadvertently, everybody was muted there for a minute.
Sorry.
That's my hope, is that we kick this issue over to Andrew and ask them to look into it and give us some advice.
I agree completely with David. I mean, we have entirely too many utility poles. Along High Street, we're hoping someday to get ungrounded lines like they have from downtown all the way to the northern boundary of Old North Columbus. And now we're just going the opposite direction and adding even more poles on High Street, not on High Street, but certainly High Street too, but even these narrow side streets, and they can just be an eyesore.
I can tell you that this was a fist fight at the State House when the original legislation came out. The AT&T and those people completely superseded anything the local communities could do, period. And this dragged on for some time, but the cities were able to kind of wrestle some stuff back. But I can get the legislation for you, David.
Yeah, no, I understand, that the state, the legislature initially tried to pass this through as part of the pet land bill and added it as sort of an 11th hour attachment, and that was invalidated. So they rewrote it, and it's kind of gone through again with a rush and so there was a suit here. So local jurisdiction is marginalized, but I think there's some limits on what we as a municipality can try to ask for that are sort of common sense design guidelines, I think.
Is Andrew here?
Yeah, I am. Happy to look into that, David. And there are a few folks at the city I know that are dealing with this right now. So legislation, Mike would be great. And then I can contact some folks in the city as well.
Right. Does that conclude your?
Yeah, in the interest of time, let's
Okay.
turn it over to Andrew.
Well, we will carry that forward, Commissioner Votero. That is a valid concern, and it's been validated here by other members of the commission, and we'll take that to heart. We'll go ahead and discuss. I'll go ahead and give the mic over to Chair of our Planning and Development Committee, Andrew Overbeck.
Great, thank you. Really simple. Actually, this goes back to something that David wrote back now almost 3 years ago on North Broadway and the Olentangy Trail. So I sent around, or BJ, you sent around earlier this week, a draft letter. There's obviously a few things that need to get updated in there and probably a typo or two to be fixed. But coming out of our last Planning and Development Committee meeting, we are aware of the RFP that the city is soon to award for improvements to the Olentangy Trail that will put 2 new bridges, one at or around Como Park, another one at Northmore, and a new trail on the west side of the Olentangy River. That will allow for a seamless all-trail connection along the Olentangy Trail. That's the last gap in the system. So the letter that Commissioner Votero put forward a few years ago, they listened to that part of the letter, but we thought it was important to advocate, as now the city is going forward with that project, that they consider pedestrian improvements on the North Broadway Bridge, and specifically on the south side of the North Broadway Bridge where there's not currently a sidewalk. So it really is as simple as that. It's saying the project limits, or the scope of that project should include pedestrian improvements and potentially bicycle improvements to that side of the North Broadway Bridge to make a better connection with the Ohio Health Campus and our neighborhood. So it's essentially what it comes down to, is following up on the second half of that area commission request from 2018.
Okay, does everybody on the commission understand the initiative here?
Yes.
Okay, thumbs up with everybody. Okay, 2 thumbs up from Libby. Okay, so I think what that means is that we want to revisit the original letter of support. Do we want to tweak and revise the existing letter of support that Commissioner Votero submitted, and work with Andrew's input and maybe fashion another letter of support?
Yeah, so what I sent over was taking portions of the original letter and adding the new detail to them.
Okay, so from here, what I would ask that we do, since we did just get a copy of that letter in the last 6 hours, let's ask everybody to review that and give your input or editorial to Andrew directly. And then we'll just go ahead and ask the commission with a vote of approval to submit Andrew's revised letter of support. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, anyone opposed?
No, I mean, I said aye, but my microphone wasn't on. And I've given Andrew my editorial stuff, so.
Of course you did, Libby. I know how you are. So, okay, Andrew, well then you have our good graces to carry on the good work. And thank you, Commissioner Votero, for your input and your presentation on the 5G tower.
Yes.
Let's do our best to carry that forward. Anything else for the good of the group? Okay, I have received no emails for public comments. Anything from anyone? Okay, Thank you for staying 5 minutes late. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All right, then the Clintonville Area Commission meeting has adjourned for June. We'll see you in July.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.